and the Seahawks yesterday here in Seattle. It was a crazy game, man. I don't know that I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen a lot of these Titans games at this point. Like my life revolves around this team basically as a reporter, but to see the way that that things kind of spiraled out of control and down 24-9 at the half, the way that they come back, the way that they push, they continue to push in the second half, and then the game kind of turning very quickly, very quickly in the fourth quarter, and really in the second half for Derrick Henry that we'll spend some time talking about over the course of today. And there's a lot of reactions you'll hear from Mike Vrabel, you'll hear from Julio Jones, you'll hear from Christian Fulton, Michael Pruitt, who was a featured player in the game, who kind of got the energy going in a way that I don't think any of us predicted or expected. And most importantly, you'll hear from new Titans legend, Randy Bullock, the man they call Fat Randy, the game winner yesterday from 36 yards out. It was pure, it was true, and it got the Titans out of there with a dub on Sunday. A lot to react to on this Manic Monday, but we got to start. We got to start with the kicker, man. I mean, Randy Bullock, when we spoke to him yesterday after the game. So the way that the post-game press conferences work now that they're back in person, they bring guys out to the podium because we're not allowed in the locker room anymore for obvious reasons. You know, we're trying to stay safe, keep socially distanced, all these things. And so Mike Vrabel, of course, speaks at the podium first. And we're asking him, you know, Mike joked earlier in the week about this being the 53rd kicker in his now going into year 4 of his tenure as the Titans head coach. This is the 11th kicker in the last 2 seasons plus 2 games that Randy Bullock is now gracing the Titans with his presence. And so we asked Mike Vrabel, you know, what's it like to be in that situation? What's it like to know that you're going to set up a game-winning kick yet again? This was Mike Vrabel's reaction after the game yesterday.
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, extremely happy. You know, I mean, happy for Randy. You know, Randy's been, you know, a lot of places, and you know, he's made kicks in this league, so happy for him that he could get recognized and help his football team win. But you're helpless. Like we've all sent our kids out of the house into a car, and you know, Jesus take the wheel, I guess. I don't know.
Jesus take the wheel. Because I'm sitting there as soon as he starts talking about, yeah, well, we've all sent our kids out of the house for the first time. I'm thinking like, Mike, I don't have kids. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. What do you mean? And then he says, yeah, Jesus take the wheel, which of course we can all relate to because the Titans kicking situation has been nothing short of disastrous, tumultuous. It's a giant stressor for anybody who's a fan of this particular franchise. And that is a feeling that we can all relate to. I saw that clip running on SportsCenter yesterday too, with Scott Van Pelt last night, which it's weird because normally I see that at 11 o'clock Central Time, and it was on at 8 because Pacific Time is totally jacking with my internal body clock. But regardless, Jesus take the wheel. That was basically the theme of yesterday's game, a game that saw the Titans come out with a much needed victory. And at the same time, all of the other AFC South teams taking an L. You saw Jacksonville lose to the Denver Broncos. You saw Indianapolis fall at home for a second straight week to an NFC West team, this time the Los Angeles Rams. And then, of course, the Texans looked pretty sharp. And then Tyrod Taylor got hurt. A lot of quarterback injuries yesterday. We'll talk about Carson Wentz, I'm sure, as the week progresses, because it doesn't look like he's going to be available for Sunday when the Titans host the Indianapolis Colts in week 3. But we've got plenty of time to talk about and preview that game in particular. In the meantime, it's all about your reaction today to what we saw on the field in Seattle. 615-737-1045 is the number. Bam is in Nashville, and he wants to talk about the quarterback. What's up, Bam?
Yo, what's good, Buck?
Not much, my brother.
Yo, man, what I wanted to talk about was, man, the the never say die of the Titans and Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, because, man, at halftime, I almost thought that game was over, man. I thought it was over. I questioned the officiating, with the whole Julio Jones touchdown. That anybody could see clear as day, man. That was like a matter of an opinion right there. You know what I'm saying? To overturn it. My concerns was I love the way Ryan Tannehill is aggressive, how he's running, but he's got to learn to fall better, because that fall, when he slid, it looked like that was a definite ACL tear. It definitely looked rough. And just I like the way Julio looked. A.J. Brown, I said earlier, he has this thing to where he doesn't get hot till the fourth or fifth game in the season. He's kind of been consistent in that, kind of missing balls, got to get his footing and stuff. But Julio looked at like what we expected him to be, and he looks like he's getting more acclimated to Ryan Tannehill. So I love the fight that we had, with just cleaning up small things, man. I kind of feel good about us going in the direction we went in with that. We just not going to die, so tighten it up, baby.
Hey, I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. 615-737-1045 is the number. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved. Yeah, listen, I mean, a lot of people pronounce them dead at halftime. And frankly, I thought they could look better in week 2 after how across the board crappy, to use the FCC safe term, how across the board crappy they looked against Arizona. And I thought, yeah, they could make improvements and still get their asses kicked, because the Seahawks are great. And the Seahawks were great, by the way. There were plenty of opportunities for Seattle to just outright bury them. And we'll talk about this coming up next, because I'm curious to know the audience's how the audience experienced this, as opposed to where, media in the press box experienced it. What did you think the turning point of that game was for Tennessee yesterday? 615-737-1045 is the number. What was the turning point for the Titans to be able to get that win in overtime against Seattle? Let us know. Call Lucas. He's going to be sweating it out. We got all kinds of audio for him. He's already been working entirely too hard. He's prepared to take your phone calls, but we want to know how you guys feel about the situation for the Titans yesterday, because there were a couple of moments that I think people would gravitate towards, but there's one specifically that I think I pinpointed as a result of that game. And I think that, as to the never say die attitude, if we could hear from Titans head coach Mike Vrabel one more time, he kind of spoke to that yesterday, and it was basically the first couple of questions that we asked him. This was Mike Vrabel yesterday talking about, what about this team allows them to display this kind of resiliency, and this was the head coach's response.
Builder, can a game be like this?
Well, I mean, I hope that we can, just play better and more complimentary. In the first half, we got to stop letting them play defense, or we got to stop playing defense inside the 10-yard line early in the game. I know that, but our job is to play defense, and these guys, they're excited, and they should be. All the credit to the players. They're the ones that came out here and kept battling and fighting, and it wasn't easy. This is a tough place to play. Give them a lot of credit. We understand the pedigree of this football team, this organization, how difficult it is to come in here and win, how difficult it is. So I'm proud of our football team.
And you always say this team.
That's Mike Vrabel speaking to the media, and that's me stumbling over my question, trying to get it out. Basically, I wanted to ask him, you've seen moments like this before from this particular franchise, right? You've seen where the Cleveland Browns come into Nissan Stadium last year, and it's supposed to be a great game between two teams that are bound for the playoffs or are seeking playoff aspirations, and the Browns put 30 on them in the first half. Now, they come back in the second half of that game, and it's to no avail because they ultimately end up losing. But Mike has consistently cited moments like that against Cleveland, against Pittsburgh, kind of the same vibe earlier that same season when the Pittsburgh Steelers came in, diced them up in the first half. Titans made it competitive in the second half, had the opportunity to get a game-tying field goal to send it to overtime, and Stephen Gostkowski misses the field goal. But it is that kind of, basically my question to Mike was, hey, how can you kind of use this moment to build upon throughout the course of the season, right? You've cited Pittsburgh to us before. You've cited Cleveland to us before, but that was last year's team. Can this be that kind of galvanizing moment to where you're preaching and teaching to the team that you can go back and cite after the fact and say, hey, remember Seattle. Remember Seattle. Remember week 2. We're capable of this. We're competent enough to do this. We're talented enough to do this. Just go out there, play clean football, execute. And that was Mike's response. So we'll continue to take your reaction on the other side. You guys want to get involved. What was the moment that the game turned in the Titans' favor? Would be curious to know how the audience experienced it. We'll talk about it coming up next. Live from Seattle, I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
J-Mart and Ramon are not afraid to put themselves out there with a bold prediction.
I've been fighting saying this out loud. Who would, Jay? I'm picking the Titans to win the Super Bowl.
Tomorrow, starting at 6 on 104.5 The Zone.
Let me tell you about my friends at Two Rivers Ford. They're the absolute best. Why? Well, they have the non-commissioned sales staff. That means you don't ever get pressure put on you to buy a vehicle when you go out and visit them. They are there to serve you, and that's their only job. They're also a local business, and we all want to support local businesses right now. In fact, they've been around in Middle Tennessee and locally owned for almost 40 years, since 1983. And you can't beat the Ford product. It's made in America. They've got so many new exciting vehicles that are getting ready to roll out over the course of the next couple of months, and that we're already out in 2021. The Ford Bronco, the electric Mustang Mach-E, the Escape, the Explorer, the Expedition, and of course, the famous F-150 truck. They even have business without question. 60 yards in the fourth quarter. Right around what? There's about 3 minutes gone, a little less than 3 minutes gone in the fourth quarter. At that point, Derrick Henry just rips off a 60-yarder. And that, I know, is what a lot of people are citing was the turning point for the Tennessee Titans yesterday in Seattle. Buck Reising here with you live from Seattle. I'll sojourn home later tonight and then be back in studio tomorrow, and we'll continue this conversation. 615-737-1045. What was the turning point to you? Because I think a lot of people are going to point to that 60-yard run, and I'm going to disagree, and I'll explain why, but let's go to the phones. Blair is in Laverne. He's been waiting patiently to weigh in. What's up, Blair?
Hey, guys. So I think it's also very tempting to throw in the 60-yard touchdown run as a turning point. But I think offensively, what was more pivotal was when Ryan Tannehill, after another failed drive, goes and sits down, and instead of pouting or moping on the bench, grabs a tablet, stares things down, and the next time we go out there, throws 5 straight dump-offs to running backs to keep the drive going. So I think kind of the awareness of he's getting too much pressure, and he doesn't have enough time to develop routes downfield. And we made great adjustments to get the dump-offs, and no one was still cutting, even after time and time again, either to Henry or McNichols. We're just dropping the ball 5 yards and letting them run with it. So I really like the fact that we stuck with our running backs in the late game as opposed to just trying to air it out and catch up, and obviously it worked out. But Christian Fulton, basically shut DK Metcalf out of that game, and I think that was great second half defensive adjustments as well.
Yeah, I'm writing an article later. Mike Vrabel's going to speak at 2 p.m. I imagine Blaine and Mickey. Thank you for the call, Blair. 615-737-1045. I imagine Blaine and Mickey are going to carry Mike Vrabel's press conference at 2 p.m. Central. But we were talking to Christian Fulton last night because he's one of the players that was brought to the podium, and I'll get to that here in just a second. You'll hear from Christian Fulton later on in the show. But Christian Fulton, I'm going to write about this later. He's probably the Titans cornerback one at this point. This is 2 strong performances for a corner and a player in a draft class, in the last 2 draft classes, that we really don't know much about, right? The knock on the 2020 class is, of course, Isaiah Wilson, and Darrington Evans cannot get out on the field. By the way, it sounds like we have an APV out for Darrington that we will address here in just a second. I know one of our callers, Billy in Mount Juliet, wants to see if he can locate Darrington because he's been awfully quiet. So we'll get to Billy momentarily. But yeah, Christian Fulton might be the Titans cornerback one right now. And I don't know that I don't know what my expectation of him was this season. We all know him to be hugely talented as a second-round pick off that national championship winning LSU team, but he's shown it. He's shown great strides. He was really their only highlight in week 1. And in week 2, I thought he did exceptional work on DK Metcalf because that was basically his responsibility for the majority of the game. 615-737-1045. And about Ryan Tannehill, listen, Ryan Tannehill's resiliency as a Titan, and I don't know what his career was like at Miami other than to follow it from afar and kind of, I have some friends in my life that are Dolphins fans. My college roommate lives and is from Miami. So he has many thoughts about Ryan Tannehill. But Ryan Tannehill's resiliency, I think that the moment that Blair cited was an important one. But listen to Ryan Tannehill yesterday talk about bouncing back from turnovers, because he had he got strip sacked again yesterday. And the offensive line, we'll talk about it later in the show, but gets strip sacked yesterday. It's his third lost fumble in 2 games. He only lost 1 fumble all of last year. And, basically we asked him, hey, these turnovers, they're starting to creep up more and more often. How do you kind of approach a situation like that? And this was the Titans quarterback.
I was fine. Not a lot I can do on that one. Got hit in the back of the head. I came off the backer sink under AJ. I was coming off him, about to flip it out to Derrick. So, yeah, it sucks, but I'm not going to go in the tank over something that I can't control. And even if I could, you have to turn the page. If you get hung up on any one play, whether it's good or bad in the game, it's going to hold you back the rest of the game. So
whether it's a touchdown drive and you're coming off the field happy, or a turnover and everyone's pissed off. You have to be able to reset on the sideline and go out ready for the next drive.
It's a great way to encapsulate that. Ryan Tannehill speaking at the podium to us in Seattle last night. It's literally the next play mentality that all football players and all football coaches talk about. But something that Ryan Tannehill has really embodied throughout the course of his career. And whether it be, how he responds from a 3-and-out early in the game, or how he responds to getting strip sacked yet again in Seattle, because the offensive line, I think, found a little bit of a rhythm once they got the run game going. But in pass pro, they were again terrible. And we'll talk about the Taylor Lewan situation coming up next, because I'm sure people have thoughts. But Ryan Tannehill is who you want guiding your team right now. He's an incredibly steady hand. He's a veteran presence. He's played in a lot of these situations at this point. And, for our boy Darrington, he's not Matt Schaub, because I've never seen Matt Schaub handle himself with that kind of composure after he throws, one of 1,000 pick sixes that Matt Schaub is famous for. 615-737-1045. Aaron is in Nashville. He wants to talk about that. Oh, we lost Aaron in Nashville. Let's go to Curtis in Nashville. He wants to talk about the turning point. What's up, Curtis?
Yeah, you guys were talking about the turning point earlier. I don't know if this was exactly the turning point, but let me tell you, as a born and bred Titans fan, last season especially, it was hard to watch our passing defense, but it was nice. I remember there was a specific Seahawks drive where I think we got 2 sacks to shut it down, one on first down and one again on third down. And that was just so reassuring as a Titans fan to finally see us getting some pressure on the quarterback, especially against the Seahawks. But that's all I got. Tighten up.
Hey, I appreciate the call, Curtis. 615-737-1045. Nick Varela has tweeted us, is it Michael Pruitt Power Hour time? Yeah, we'll talk about Michael. You'll hear from Michael Pruitt here in just a second. But listen, there were 3 massive plays that the Seahawks had in the passing game that had the potential to break the Titans, to just basically break the Titans over the Seahawks' knee. And it was a situation where the coverage busts were there, those 3 big coverage busts, and I'll pull up the longest plays from that game on my stat sheet here in just a second and recite them for you. But yeah, pressure was there in abundance. Danico Autry, Jeff Simmons up front pushing the pocket. They moved Danico Autry around the formation and they brought him from different angles, which seemed to have an effect. Harold Landry, I thought, was great. And there are moments that frustrate you. For example, a 63-yard touchdown on 3rd and 12 Russell Wilson threw that I mean, really seemed to just completely, to Freddie Swain, not Jeff Swaim, who was a Titans tight end, but Fred Swaim, who was a Seahawks wide receiver, a 68-yard touchdown pass on 3rd and 12 in the 4th quarter, right before the Derrick Henry touchdown run for 60 yards. The pressure is there. And I got some tweets yesterday about, what's going on with Bud Dupree. Is he not healthy? Doesn't seem to be having an impact. No, this is exactly what it's supposed to look like. Bud Dupree's primary function isn't to get you the sacks. It is to also get sacks while drawing attention from Harold Landry and Danico Autry and Ola Adenyi, who had he should have had, I don't know if safeties get credited to the individual player who causes the safety, should have had a safety yesterday. And we'll spend some time on the officiating later in the show, because it was egregious on both sides. I thought there were some crap calls on the Seahawks as well that I thought should have been reviewed, or should have just not been, the flags not been thrown whatsoever. But for the defense, Bud Dupree is there to free up everybody else, or to help create situations where everybody else can become freed up, to where you can have those one-on-one matchups for Simmons and for Autry and for Landry or whomever is in the game. Now, it was interesting to me yesterday, speaking of pass rush and the defense, you had a lot of people clamoring for Rashad Weaver, and he was active yesterday. And we'll spend some time on the injuries pregame coming up next. But he was active yesterday. He played, I believe it was 14 snaps solely on special teams, none on defense. Ola Adenyi got more snaps on defense than Rashad Weaver, who got none. So that kind of tells you where the coaching staff thinks he is and how you should, measure preseason performances against what you're actually seeing when it comes time to play the real game. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved. Buck Reising here with you live from Seattle. What was the turning point for the Titans on Sunday to get that overtime win against the Seahawks? Let's go to Josh, who's in Murfreesboro and wants to talk about the turning point. What's up, Josh?
Sure. I think it was the 3 plays that right there at the beginning of the fourth quarter with Michael Pruitt, starting with the Adams penalty. I think he really got in their head, and Tannehill went to him like 3 times in a row, and I think that's what really set the stage to turn it around, kind of hyped them up, followed by the Tannehill scramble for about 18 yards, I think it was, something like that. That's all I got.
No, it's a great point. And in fact, let's hear from Michael Pruitt, because not only was he making plays down the field, like catch and run, long catch and runs from Michael Pruitt yesterday, which is not something that I expected to be a part of the Titans game plan. But Anthony Ferkser was inactive, dealing with an injury after being on the injury report all week. So it was the Michael Pruitt show. And not only was he creating opportunities down the field, but he was getting in the head of Seahawks defenders, namely Jamal Adams. And this was Michael Pruitt on that particular side.
Man, that's just all part of the game, man. You get into the flow of the game and emotions get high and tensions get high, and I felt like we needed a spark at that point, and you know, whatever I can do to provide help to do that, I'm gonna be able to do that. And even if I gotta, you know, get into it, take it to that edge without getting a penalty or whatever, that's what I'm gonna try to do.
It's the first time, I think it's the first time in his career Michael Pruitt has been a podium speaker, and well-deserved, right? You talk about energy and a lack thereof against the Arizona Cardinals, right? Where Derrick Henry is saying, yeah, we were lackadaisical, and he's having to try and get them up on the sidelines at home against the Cardinals. And kind of the game started with that same lackadaisical is not the approach, because there was a sense of urgency given what the environment is like here in Seattle at Lumen Field. It's such a tremendous stadium. This has probably been, I may have said this earlier, but this has probably been my favorite road trip that I've taken in 5 years covering Tennessee. This is Seattle is such a cool environment to see a game, particularly when you see that crowd silenced the way that the Titans managed to silence one of the loudest and rowdiest crowds in all of the NFL. But to Michael Pruitt's point, listen, it doesn't matter where the spark comes from, whether it be a star player like Derrick Henry or whether it be a role player like Michael Pruitt or Fat Randy, baby, who we'll hear from later on in the show. The man they call Fat Randy, the hero of the game, future Titans Ring of Honor member.
Instead of Fat Randy, can we do our own thing and just call him Randy Bullock, but Bullock spelled with like 3 or 4 C's at the end?
Like we did with Sam Sloman, the thicker?
Yes.
You know, I don't hate it. Perhaps. So I got a lot of tweets yesterday saying that Schefter is reporting that Fat Randy has been upgraded to Husky Randy in light of making 4 of his 5 field goals. And listen, the fourth attempt that he missed was to see the reaction, how Rome started to burn on the internet with Titans Twitter, just specifically it's a flamethrower in my face while I'm covering these games.
Fat Randy feels harsh though as a nickname. He doesn't look that bad.
Buddy, you should have seen Lucas, let me tell you, okay? And I mean this respectfully to Randy Bullock. I really do. And we're having some fun at Randy's expense. He should, of course, be appreciated and applauded and lauded today. But so Mike Vrabel's at the podium. He finishes his press conference. Kevin Byard comes to the podium. He finishes his press conference. And then this individual, the Titans PR staff brings this individual into the press conference room, the visitor team press conference room. And I swear to God, Lucas, I kid you not, Randy Bullock looks like an equipment staffer. Like I had no idea. He comes in a ball cap. He got like a raincoat on. He doesn't look, and kickers rarely do, but I texted our group text. It's like me, Tehran, Rex Road, PK. I texted our group text. I said, oh my God, I think that's our boy. And sure enough, they put him in front of the microphone, and don't call him fat, call him Husky Randy, came to the podium in all of his glory and all of his might off the champion of the day. It was laugh out loud funny to see what he actually looked like. Not even at the podium, but pregame when he's warming up, and I see him in his shoulder pads without a helmet on, and the shoulder pads, he's scrunched up. If you're watching on Zone TV, he looks like a looked like a turtle half out of his shell. And he's kind of, it's not doing much for his stomach. It's not doing much for his chin. Listen, man, all the credit in the world to Randy Bullock because because I thought that was just a spectacular performance.
Well, did you see all the stuff floating around from last week, Rodrigo Blankenship, when the Colts played the Seahawks, and it was pictures of him next to DK Metcalf saying football is a beautiful sport when these two guys can play it at a very high level.
It's the best part. Listen, kickers are the worst, but they can also be the best, just from an aesthetics purpose.
Blankenship, you have like the 80-pound big framed glasses next to DK Metcalf, who isn't a human.
Oh, it's the rec specs. Yeah, DK is, to see him in person yesterday was frankly jarring. We'll get to more of your phone calls coming up next, but I want to give you my turning point before we move on. And before we start to talk about the offensive line and Taylor Lewan and what that inactives list looked like yesterday, because it wasn't just Lewan. Jayon Brown, Anthony Ferks are some key contributors that the Titans managed to win without yesterday. But for me, Lucas, and I don't know how you experienced this, and of course, you guys are welcome to weigh in on Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. For me, it was when Seattle threw that 68-yard touchdown pass on 3rd and 12 at the start of the fourth quarter, 13:06 left on the clock. So it puts them up at the time 30-16. And because it's right after Derrick Henry's first touchdown. Derrick Henry had 3 total touchdowns in the second half. But with that 68-yard touchdown pass from Russell Wilson to Fred Swain, that missed extra point for Seattle, that was the moment when I looked at that and said, oh my God, the Seattle Seahawks have never played a normal game in the history of Pete Carroll coaching this franchise. This is how, if there is to be a collapse by Seattle, and listen, make no doubt about it, the Titans won, but the Seahawks also lost that game in dreadful fashion. That moment where he doinks the extra point instead of putting them up 31-16 as opposed to 30-16, that created the opportunity. That created the moment where I think everybody's eyes lit up and said, okay, if they can get a couple touchdowns on the board, they can even up this game. We'll talk about it coming up next. Your calls as well. We'll spend some time on the Taylor Lewan situation. I'll tell you what I saw pregame and what Mike Vrabel had to say about it. I'm Buck Reising, live from Seattle. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Live interaction with other listeners while watching your favorite Zone shows. It's 104.5 The Zone TV live on YouTube and Twitch.
Let me tell you about DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated Titans is number 14 in two-tone blue, number 14 in your playbooks, number 1 in your hearts, Randy Bullock. You'll hear from him momentarily. Buck Reising here with you till 1 o'clock. Welcome into the show. I'm laughing because I finally found my way into the Zone TV chat. I got my iPad set up because I'm doing the show still in Seattle, and I'll fly back later this afternoon and get in late this evening. But Ryan Witten on YouTube, because we're trying to decide we want to be respectful of Randy. All right. We want to be respectful of Randy Bullock. We want to be respectful of this Titans kicker. And so we were trying to find something else to call him other than Fat Randy, because Fat Randy feels inherently disrespectful, even though it may be and I don't even think it's fair. He's not fat. It's like Dad Bod Randy. Like, I think Dad Bod Randy is appropriate. Fat Randy feels a bit extreme, but Ryan Witten in the chat on YouTube says Roundy, Roundy Bullock, and I found that inherently disrespectful as well. So we will endeavor to find a new name for this Titans kicker. We'll get back to the phones here in just a second, but I want people to hear from Randy Bullock himself, given that it was his moment to shine and his opportunity that he took full advantage of. You heard Mike Vrabel talking about the Jesus take the wheel feeling. Well, this is what the Titans kicker had to say about the offense giving him a chance.
Yeah, I think once they were kind of backed up punting, it all kind of set in. I was obviously already warming up, kind of seeing the field position and all that, so I was waiting for an opportunity.
And basically, he did get that opportunity. And so when the opportunity came his way for Randy Bullock, he told us last night that it's about trusting what it is that he does. Now, Randy Bullock has a career in the NFL. Randy Bullock's been around for a long time. But it's all about the process for these guys, and this is what the Titans kicker's process was yesterday.
Yeah, I think more just trusting what I do. I felt like I hit a pretty good ball on the one that I did miss. There's a pretty heavy wind down there into the face. You kind of see it on an extra point that he hit off the upright as well. The ball was moving. So just trust it, hit a good clean ball, and let everything else take care of itself.
Let everything else take care of itself. A man of few words is Dad Bod Randy is what I think we'll roll with Dad Bod Randy until further notice. Okay, 615-737-1045 is how you guys get involved. Chuck is in Clarksville. He wants to weigh in on this particular subject. Hello, Chuck.
Good morning, Buck. Hey, I'm a guy that kind of likes fried bologna, so I'm thinking Randy thick-cut bologna Bullock.
Ooh, thick-cut bologna Bullock. That's a little wordy. I don't know how well how well Mike Keith may be able to rattle that off should Randy Bullock cut bologna Bullock hit his next field goal. But I love this. I think we should take more nominations throughout the course of the day. 615-737-1045.
Got some local flavor to it. I like that.
Yeah, listen, have you ever had fried bologna?
Oh, yeah. You can't spend too much time in the South without ever having fried bologna.
I don't know that I've ever had it, and I've been in the South now for 6 years, so perhaps my time has come.
A go-to college meal when you're broke, too.
Well, what was mine? Yeah, see, you know what? Let me not get into that, because then I'm just going to sound like a jerk. 615-737-1045 is the number. All right, Lucas, I'm going to roll the dice. Is Harper and Lafayette still on the line? Is Harper there? Okay, Harper is not there. Let's go to Stryker in Nashville, who has a turning point moment. What's up, Stryker?
Hey, Buck, my belief is that whatever happened in that locker room at halftime was the turning point. I would have really enjoyed listening in on that. Coaches, captains, the second half was completely different. And if you buy into leadership, something very significant happened in that locker room at halftime.
You know, that's an interesting notion, and you're not the only person to say that, Stryker. And I appreciate the phone call. 615-737-1045 is how you guys get involved throughout the course of the day, taking your calls in reaction to the Titans' 33-30 overtime win here in Seattle. You know, the halftime, because we asked Derrick Henry about this last night, and what Derrick said is, yeah, nobody talked but the head coach. There wasn't anybody but Mike Vrabel in there telling him. And Mike, to his credit, was just like, yeah, you know, I told him, hey, you've done this before. You've been in these situations. I'm paraphrasing. Mike, I'm sure, did it with a lot more colorful language than I'm allowed to do on FCC radio. But, you know, Mike Vrabel, I don't know why he seems to be a bit polarizing among Titans fans. And maybe that's just because of the defense and its recency bias and all that. But I don't think people understand. Mike Vrabel is 8-0 coming off double-digit losses. He doesn't get embarrassed like that. His teams don't get embarrassed like that very often, and he just made Pete Carroll lose his first home opener in 12 home openers across Pete Carroll's tenure as the Seattle Seahawks coach. Mike Vrabel's good at what he does, and I don't know why people are like hesitant to come to terms with that.
And that's not counting the Cleveland loss where they were getting run off the field in the first half and kind of clawed back to make it a 6-7 point game at the end. If you count that, he's 9-0 after those losses.
Yeah, no, it's true. 615-737-1045. Because I always get tweets and it's always reactionary during the games. Fire Mike Vrabel. Fire Mike Vrabel. Get him out of here. Doesn't know what he's doing. My buddy Charlie Burris with A to Z Sports, who does a lot of our Vols content, he says, because he's a clown, talking about the Titans head coach. Mike Vrabel is very, what's the word I want to use? He's formidable. And as a head coach, what you want is your dude to be a plus on the sidelines, which Mike, more often than not, a higher percentage of time than not, he is. And you want him to be formidable when it comes to the handling of professional athletes. And he is nothing if not formidable. 615-737-1045 is the number. Let's see who is there. Is Chuck and no, we went to Chuck in Clarksville. Is Bill in Nashville still with us on the line? What's up, Bill?
Hey, Buck.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, good morning. Hey, if Randy hits 4 out of 5 in the game winner, I'm going to name him Ravishing Randy.
Ravishing Randy Bullock. I like that.
A little more flattering. See, I appreciate that.
That is more worthy of his accomplishments yesterday. Ravishing Randy Bullock. All right. What we're going to talk about coming up next is the inactives list heading into that game, because it was problematic and a name was added to it right before kickoff that the Titans were not expecting. Your phone calls as well. Hang with us. Buck Reising live with you from Seattle and until 1 o'clock here on 104.5 The Zone.
Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers host the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football. Tonight starting at 7 on your home for Monday Night Football. 104.5 The Zone.
that we are doing the radio show live from. We're taking your calls. We're reacting to a tremendous overtime win. I had not heard the 36-yard game-winning field goal call from Mike Keith and Coach Dave McGinnis on Titans Radio until Lucas played it in his update. My God, is that glorious. I don't know how you kept yourself from laughing doing your very professional sports update broadcast voice. You did that very well. I'm proud of you, buddy.
Mickey watched often when they're on the road. Mickey and I are watching the games together in the control room because I'm doing scoreboards, Titans Radio. He's getting ready for Titans Talk Back. And so we have the Mike Keith call on the headphones and on the speaker in the studio, and the TV is on, but there's obviously a delay. So we get the call, and then what we see on TV is like the replay of the Mike Keith call. So it's fun to have the call in real time and then to see what happened. But that moment of suspense where Mickey and I are just standing and looking at each other as about 4 or 5 seconds tick by of silence before he yells good, and then Coach Mack, just so much joy coming through on that call from Coach Dave McGinnis. Pure joy.
And it's certainly something that the fan base is feeling today. It's a much different tenor, much different vibe from the show that we did a week ago. Now, we're going to talk about something that I thought was going to damn them yesterday. I really came out of once we got the inactives list, and if you're watching on Zone TV, I'm holding up my game day inactives list that the Seahawks handed out prior to the game. And it is littered with many Titans starters of consequence. And for the radio audience, I'm rustling it in front of the microphone because, of course, this is a primarily audio medium.
Theater of the mind.
Theater of the mind. That is correct. But we'll get to that momentarily. But we've been trying to figure out what to call Randy Bullock. That's been the objective of today's show. We got fried bologna, Randy. We've got Randy the Bullock. We got fat Randy. We got thick with 2 C's Randy. We got it all. And it has been funny to see some of your nominees. We'll get back to that momentarily. But first, let's go to Jason in Bellevue, who's been waiting patiently. He wants to weigh in on the Titans' victory yesterday. What's up, Jason?
Hey, Buck, I've got one thing that's going to be lost on everyone who watched the game. Ryan Tannehill went into Seattle and outcooked Russ. If it wasn't for the Julio Jones bad call on the touchdown, this game would have never went to overtime.
Oh, listen, and I appreciate the call, Jason. Ryan Tannehill, it didn't even have to come down to the Julio touchdown that wasn't a touchdown, and you'll hear from Julio Jones on that subject momentarily. But listen, if A.J. Brown catches even half of his targets yesterday, that you want to talk about something getting lost in the delight of a win and all the celebration that's happening across the state of Tennessee and wherever there are Titans fans and across the country. A.J. Brown had a wretched game. And in fact, this was something that Ryan Tannehill spoke about yesterday because I asked him, I said, when a guy has a game like that, has a performance like that, you're a veteran quarterback. You've been through this a number of times. When a player has a game like that, do you say something to him? Do you just kind of continue to go about your process? Do you continue targeting him? And this was the Titans quarterback yesterday.
Yeah, I told him I'm going to keep throwing it to him. I have a lot of faith in AJ, and I told him I'm going to keep coming to him. So I did that. Just kept throwing his way, and if I felt like he had an edge on the guy, I'm going to let it rip like I always trust him. So just because the guy misses a couple plays or something like that, I'm not going to cancel him out. I have a ton of faith in AJ. AJ's made huge plays for us, made big plays today. Obviously, some plays he wants back, but there's some plays that everybody wants back. There's plays I want back, Derrick wants back, O-line wants back. It's an imperfect game. So obviously, a lot of things we need to get corrected, but I have a lot of faith in AJ that he'll bounce back.
Did you see A.J. Brown's tweet? That was Ryan Tannehill at the podium speaking to us post-game after Seattle. Did you see A.J. Brown's tweet last night?
Did he delete it?
Probably. He deletes more tweets than I've tweeted in my life. God love him.
Yeah, that was good.
Which stinks because he's funny on social media, and I wish that he would just leave it up there for the purposes of content. But yeah, AJ Brown tweeted last night that somebody in his family texted him that he couldn't catch COVID, which, listen, knock on wood if you're a Titan, because that's not something you can joke about after two outbreaks, the first outbreaks in the NFL with the Titans and COVID-19. But I did appreciate his sense of humor after the fact. But listen, there is truth in what Ryan Tannehill is saying. He didn't stop targeting AJ Brown. He kept going back to him, and there were some wretched drops. AJ Brown had a tough game yesterday, but in Seattle, in an environment unlike anything that I have seen outside of the 2019 AFC Championship game at Kansas City, in one of the loudest and most raucous environments, Ryan Tannehill went out there and outcooked Russell Wilson by a considerable margin. That is not something I don't think that's lost on people, even though the caller has pointed that out. Now, as we continue our discussion about nicknames for Randy Bullock, a buddy of mine has texted me that he dubbed him last night after the victory Randy Bullnuts. So there is that as well, emblematic of the Washington. What is it? The Wall Street Bull that is well endowed, shall we say? Apparently, Randy Bullock also featuring that same. What you know what I'm talking about, Lucas?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
The famous bull on Wall Street, because the stock market, bull market, bear market, the famous bull.
Oh, okay, like in New York. Yes,
in New York.
Okay, I see.
What do you think? I'm talking about like Wall Street? No, not the Broadway in Nashville, the Broadway in New York, not the Wall Street in Nashville, the Wall Street in New York. Stay with me, buddy. I've been telling Tony Husband of Nashville SC that we're a cultured show. We cannot show our ignorance in front of the listening audience.
We are a cultured show.
You're damn right we are. 615-737-1045 is the number. Let's go to Danny in the borough, who's got a Randy Bullock nickname. What's up, Danny?
What's up, guys? Yeah, so I think that Fat Randy's fine, but if you want to be a little bit nicer, we can call him Full-Figured Randy. But either way, we should just start calling him the Thicker Kicker.
Listen, I've been on, thank you for the call, 615-737-1045. I've been on the Thicker, THICCER, since Sam Sloman. So nobody's got to tell me to call a kicker a thicker, because that is what Sam Sloman was. You have tremendous success with thickers as of late. Won you the AFC South not that long ago, a couple of months ago, and now one has found you your first win of the 2021 season. And Randy, don't call him Bullnuts Bullock. 615-737-1045. Terry is in Nashville. Oh, forgive me. Terry has dropped off. Let's go to RJ in Phoenix, who wants to bring the smoke to the Nashville airwaves. What's going on, my guy?
What's going on, Buck, man? Good morning.
Good morning to you.
I know you always say Indiana is a basketball school, blah, 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 right? But
that's right.
If y'all would have beat Cincinnati Saturday, man, I know you would have came on here and said something. You've been cricket about your football team all morning, man. I won a pretty penny, -3.5 for Cincinnati. But this is the point of my call. This is the point of my call right here. Darrington, where are you? You're disrespecting my quarterback. You called up to my radio station. This is the Titan station. And then you're a coward this morning. You won't show your face. Lucas, do not put that buster on the radio ever again. If he do not call this radio station by 1 p.m. Nashville time, man, you need to step up and bow down, or you are banned from you are banned from the zone, man. You cannot call the zone no more. If he don't show his face, Lucas, he can't call no more. If he don't call today, don't call no more. Darrington. That's all I got.
Hey, rack 'em. Listen, that's truth to power right there. Where are you at, my guy? Darrington. You can't play heel all year long. And then when Ryan Tannehill throws for 347 yards, damn near should have been he should have had 400 yards if AJ Brown could catch a cold yesterday.
Those were his Seahawks.
But that's right. I forgot that Darrington's
the whole
Seahawks
point.
fan.
Those are his Seahawks.
Wow. That has been completely lost on me until this very moment. Darrington, this is cowardice. Where are you? Liam Neeson. Does Darrington, one of our favorites, the heel of the Buck Reising Show, does Darrington have the stones, the Randy Bullock-sized stones, to call this radio show today?
No.
That is correct. Ooh, Liam Neeson has spoken.
Challenge from Neeson's himself.
615-737-1045. What a delightful show we're having today. Let's go to Josh in Arizona who wants to weigh in on the Randy Bullock controversy. Hello.
Hey, what's up?
What's
I think
happening,
we should
Josh?
call him Butcher Block Bullock.
Butcher Block Bullock?
That's very concise.
Why? Because he looks like a ham hock? That's mean. I got to stop it. This is like you can't have me in front of a live mic like this. It's going to get me in trouble. And I listen, I think the world of Randy Bullock, a Randy Bullock forever, Titans legend Randy Bullock. I tweeted that after the first made field goal, and then he went on to hit 3 more. 615-737-1045. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Taylor Lewan situation and how the Titans should move forward at offensive tackle. I've got some stats for you, courtesy of our buddy Mike Miracles, who just can't get himself to log off Twitter, that you're going to find very interesting about the 2 players who filled in on the left side for Roger Saffold and Taylor Lewan. That's coming up next. Your phone calls as well. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The Titans went west and got a win against the Seahawks in their 12th man.
Snap, set, kick. Yes! How about these Titans? Yes! 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 The impossible situation possible.
Talk about it all day on your flagship for Titans Radio. 104.5 The Zone.
What's going on, guys? Buck Reising back with you. My good friend Gary Ashton recently told me that people walk up to him all the time and say, don't sell without the intel. That's because it's true. Now is a fantastic time to sell in Nashville, but you can't do it without the intel. And no one has better intel than the Gary Ashton team. Intel so that you can sell your house without any showings or staging. Intel on where to find your next home so you can sell your current one while the market is still red hot. Intel that helps you win the buyer battle and cash in on your home equity right now. Everyone else is getting the same information, competing for the same properties. GaryAshton.com gives you the edge with the best real estate intel in Nashville. Plus, the Gary Ashton team is the official real estate agent of the victorious Tennessee Titans. Get the confidence to sell your home without the stress and with time to find your dream 1045 is how you getting involved. I promised you some Taylor Lewan conversation and some statistics on Ty Sambrailo, who started at left tackle yesterday, and David Quessenberry on the right side, who's been the starting right tackle for this team through 2 weeks, that are going to shock your system. And I'll give those to you momentarily. But Lucas, I want you to tell the audience, because we got some calls and we have loaded lines. We'll get back to your phone calls here in just a second. But I want you to share with the audience. I don't think I'm betraying any confidence if I ask you to share the call that you got that didn't want to go on the air.
Well, yeah, we had a disgruntled caller. Her name was Anna. I was hoping she'd hop in and be involved, but I don't think she wanted to. She was upset because she wanted to call, listen in, hear about the Titans win against the Seahawks, and she was upset because she tuned into the Buck Reising Show, and all she heard was us talking about balls, balls, balls. That's all she heard. It was disgusting. She was disgusted by it, and she was very upset by this. And I wanted her to join the show, but she dropped off. But we do have Kathy from Franklin here who has thoughts, and plenty of other callers.
Okay, let's go to Kathy and Franklin. Put it on my tombstone, Anna. Balls, 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 the Buck Reising Show. Hello, Kathy.
Okay, well, she's not going to be real happy with me either, because I was listening to your comment wondering if the other caller was going to have the stones to call in. And I thought, I mean, that's the answer. We call him Randy Bollocks. I mean, there's no other choice.
Hey, you know what? Rack 'em, Lucas. That's excellent work, Kathy. Thank you so much for the call. We appreciate it. Man, I love the people that listen to the show more than life itself. I swear to God. Randy Bollocks.
that's pretty high up there.
Unbelievable. So let's talk about Taylor Lewan, and then we'll get back to the phones. Because I know people are anxious to talk about this game, and they want to talk about A.J. Brown. They want to talk about Derrick. I want to spend some time on Derrick Henry, certainly in the noon hour, to be specific. And Julio Jones, the touchdown, the officiating yesterday was atrocious on both sides, and that has to be addressed at some point in today's show. But so here's what happens, right? I do the Lee Company countdown to kickoff, right? We do it 3 hours before kickoff every Sunday right here on 104.5 The Zone and the Titans Radio Network. You and me for an hour pregame to get you set for the week, and what I've learned from practice and from press conferences and the storylines that are going to play a part in this game. And one of the biggest storylines of this game is I said at the end of the show that if the Titans were to win, it would be because of one thing, and it would be because the Titans offensive line had a dominant performance, right? Taylor Lewan tweeted last week, thank you, Chandler Jones, for exposing me. Got his ass kicked, on and on and on it goes. Roger Saffold did not have a good game in week 1 against Arizona. None of the Titans offensive linemen had a good game in week 1 against the Cardinals. They got summarily handled. And so my thought process was the offense can't do anything with the way that this team is structured if the offensive line isn't there, if isn't capable, is inept. And yesterday, we go out there for pregame warmups once I get to the stadium, and Taylor Lewan is out on the field. He's in good spirits. You know, Taylor is rarely in poor spirits. And on this particular day, he was getting prepared. He was warming up. He was going through his process. And then all of a sudden, we see him leave the field very rapidly. Now, he left under his own power, but it was a moment where everybody looked around. The training staff went over to him, and it was a situation where it was clear and obvious that Taylor Lewan had done something to aggravate. I don't know if it was I didn't see which knee that he aggravated. I don't know if it was the surgically repaired left knee that he suffered the ACL tear on last year. So I don't want to recklessly speculate. All I know is that he went inside after pregame warmups and then was summarily ruled out on the inactives list with a knee. So it's concerning. And so you look at that and you say, well, who the hell is going to play left tackle? Because it can't be Kendall Lamb again. Kendall Lamb, also atrocious in week 1, 2 false starts back-to-back, and then a strip sack that he allowed on Ryan Tannehill. That was, it was a poor performance, and he had been the backup left tackle all throughout the course of training camp. So you can't do that again, right? So they put Ty Sambrailo back in on the left side. Now, Ty Sambrailo also had his season last year ended due to injury and has been slow to get back to full strength over the course of the last couple of months, but is prepared to play left tackle. So put him out there. Let's see how it goes. David Quessenberry on the right Sam Braylo on the left. Mike Herndon tweeted out a stat today. At Mike Miracles is where you can follow my, allegedly retired buddy from Broadway Sports on social media, even though he tweets more Titan stats than anybody I know. Ty Sambrailo and David Quessenberry allowed a combined 1 pressure, and this was Sambrailo, on 48 pass blocking snaps yesterday. An exceptional performance by both tackles that started for the Tennessee Titans. The offensive line dominated, and thus the Titans were able to find a way to win. It was just as I had kind of speculated, and it's not, I'm not, this is not groundbreaking analysis. If you don't have an offensive line, you can't do anything. And the Titans in week 1 didn't. So in order for them to do something, an offensive line was going to be requisite. But I did not think that the dominant performance would come on the backs of Ty Sambrailo and David Quessenberry. And to their credit, it absolutely did. Now, what this means for Taylor Lewan long-term, Mike Vrabel wouldn't comment on. In fact, this was the Titans head coach when we kind of pushed him on it, the idea of what happened to Taylor and what his long-term availability might be. This was Mike Vrabel at the podium last night.
We put the next guy in there, Jim. That's what we do. That's what we've done since, that's as far as I can remember as a player in this league and as a coach. You put the next guy in there and you hope that everybody's prepared, and that's why they come to practice. And, could happen on the first snap, could happen before an hour and a half before the game. Not sure, but we'll see, what the situation is, and, make sure that everybody's ready to try to help us on game day. We're going to take a look and see where he's at, after the game. I was focused on the game when I realized that, that he wouldn't be able to go. So we'll try to keep you guys updated. My concern is about getting home safe and treating the guys that need to be treated, and Taylor would obviously be part of that since he wasn't able to play in the football game.
So Mike Vrabel says he'll keep us updated, and I'm quite certain that means that no update is going to come outside of the requisite injury report on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday prior to week 3 against the Colts. By the way, speaking of injuries, Carson Wentz apparently has injuries on both of his ankles. As Ian Rappaport reported earlier this morning, it's unlikely that he's going to start against the Titans on Sunday. We'll have all week to talk about, though, at great length. I expect you'll see Jacob Eason unless there is some kind of dramatic change.
That was just a theme all day yesterday. Quarterbacks going down across the board.
It was crazy because I was getting set up for the pregame show, and I saw Tyrod Taylor goes down. Tua Tagovailoa goes down. Not Joe Burrow. I'm sorry.
Dalton went down.
Andy Dalton went down. And then I believe there was one more. I know Carson Wentz got hurt. I believe there was one more that I'm forgetting. But regardless, it was a bad day. Bad day to be a quarterback yesterday. And certainly that was a concern about Ryan Tannehill, right? I mean, the offense, the protection, the pass protection. Even though the pressures looked the way that they did at the tackle position, Seattle was finding ways to get in there and rough Tannehill up. I mean, Bobby Wagner just came clean on a blitz. Nate Davis didn't touch him. David Quessenberry didn't touch him. I think that pressure was credited to Nate Davis that he gave up. But there were a couple moments when, throughout the past 2 games that you very much fear for the safety of Ryan Tannehill, who has been remarkably healthy as a quarterback in Tennessee after having a track record of being not so healthy as the Dolphins quarterback. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you guys want to weigh in on what you saw yesterday, how you feel about the offensive line situation, what your level of concern is, or just general observations from the game, we welcome your calls. Let's go to Murph in East Nashville who wants to weigh in about the Titans. What's up, Murph?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
We're doing great, boss.
Hey, I was calling, man. Every time we have a good win, a signature win, the ESPNs, the FS1s, all our sports talk, shows, they never give the Titans their due, man. I don't know what it is, man. They never give them their due. So, hey, I find it funny. But when we lose, they give us all the press. But when we win, we don't get enough press.
Well, and I'll tell you exactly why that is, Murph. Thanks for the call, 615-737-1045. Because if they win, you know who else won? Yes, Lucas, let's see if we can play this game. Who else won yesterday that would attract? And by the way, the Titans got a lot of love because Derrick Henry had an incredible performance in the second half of that game. And Derrick Henry is something that the national media loves to run highlight packages of. But Lucas, who else won yesterday that might distract attention from the Tennessee Titans? Can you take a guess for me in dramatic fashion?
Well, the Cardinals won in very dramatic fashion.
Well, the Cardinals don't count for this particular exercise.
How about the Cowboys kicking a 56-yard field goal at the death?
How about them Cowboys? The Cowboys were all over TV. There are many more Cowboys fans than they are Titans fans. But Murph, here's what I'll say to you. Okay, we do not have the reach. I am not Adam Schefter, right? I'm Buck Reising. But we talk about the Titans. We talk about the Titans all the time. We talk about the Vols all the time. We talk about local sports because that's what people in Middle Tennessee and Titans fans across the country who listen on the 104.5 The Zone app, or who watch me on A to Z Sports, or who listen to the Greg Cosell install podcast that I do every Wednesday with Greg, and the 615 Sessions podcast that I do every Tuesday for A to Z. Like, there is gobs and gobs and gobs of local coverage. And by the way, not to brag on myself or on Lucas or on Jason Martin or on Ramon Foster or on Brent Doherty, Don Davenport, Ron Slay, Mickey Ryan, Blaine Bishop. We know a hell of a lot more about the Tennessee Titans than anybody you're watching on SportsCenter. I hate to tell you that, but them's the outside of Teron. Teron works for ESPN. Teron Davenport, our buddy over at ESPN.com. He doesn't ever get SportsCenter hits because there's not enough Titans fans to get Teron on SportsCenter. So when they lose, it's because losses are more dramatic. It's why Monday was probably last Monday was one of our most interacted shows, because a little bit of chaos, a little bit of disaster is good for us in the media business. Now, I know you as a fan base don't want to hear that, but like when bleep blows up, so does our show, right? But on that same end, Derrick Henry was all over SportsCenter. He was all over Late Night with Van Pelt. I'm watching the replay of Good Morning Football right now because I'm on Pacific time and it's 9:30 in the morning here. He's all over Good Morning Football with the angry runs. Was yesterday. Lucas, can we put this on a poll? At Buck Reising is where we vote on the polls. Was that the gentlest? Is it gentlest or most gentle? I think it's most gentle. Was that the most gentle stiff arm of Derrick Henry's career yesterday on the 60-yard touchdown run? Because he just kind of lightly pushed Quandre Diggs. Just like you would a dog on the nose. He got pooped. No. Okay, change the poll. Did Derrick Henry boop Quandre Diggs yesterday? This show is so stupid. 615.
The dog is begging or something, begging for your dinner. Boop, boop.
I'm cracking up. That's awesome. All right, put it on the poll at Buck Reising. We'll update the polls at the end of the show. Let's go to Frank in Laverne, who wants to talk about fried bologna Randy. What's up? What's up, Frank?
Hey, are you guys there?
Yeah, we sure are, buddy.
All right, man. You guys are really body shaming this guy, and I feel bad for him. We really need a kicker. We haven't had one since Rob Baronis, but why don't you guys be nice and call him like Randy the Bulldog Bullock? Something to give him a little confidence. Something to kind of pick up a little bit of swagger.
Yeah.
So.
No, I'm with that. Listen, somebody nominated him to be. Thank you for the call, Frank. 615-737-1045. I do not want to body shame because Will Compton regularly comes on my radio show and body shames me. So I know how it feels to be Fat Randy because I'm Fat Buck. But I would say to you that we had a caller nominate him as Ravishing Randy. And so in victories, he will be Ravishing Randy. And should he cost the Titans a game, then he will revert back to Fat Randy. Downgraded, like questionable to return, downgraded to Fat Randy. If he costs the Titans a game. 615-737-1045. What a ridiculous show. What are we doing today? Lucas, this is on you. If we do this dumb of a show, it's on you because you're the executive producer of this show. So you're the captain of the ship. I'm just the one guiding the proceedings with the microphone in front of my face, unfortunately for the audience. But to kind of circle back to the offensive line situation, I sent some texts out last night in regards to Lawan, and this was, I guess it would have been yesterday afternoon because it was pregame. And at that point, I don't know that they've done a medical evaluation on him, and I think things were still kind of in flux, and they were just kind of a scramble drill to get him, to get the left tackle situation figured out before they had to play a game, 20 minutes after he had experienced that setback or tweak pregame that cost him the ability to really to even play, right? He wasn't even an active participant, meaning he couldn't have gone if he wanted to. And it's wise to kind of slow play him right now for all the things that Lewan seems to be going through. And I know, like, you're going to hear those pressure stats where Ty Sambrailo and David Quessenberry together between them only gave up one pressure yesterday. And you're going to say, a lot of people are tweeting me. Many people are saying this, right? Many people are saying this, that the Titans are better without Taylor Lewan. And I would say to you, that is absolutely asinine if Taylor's right. But it does not appear that he is quite right just yet. And until such time, they need to kind of solidify that with a more stable situation at left tackle as they try to get their Pro Bowl left tackle up to speed. 615-737-1045 is the number. Let's go to Mike in Cookville, who wants to talk about the turning point for the Titans yesterday. What's up, Mike? Nope, mic drop. Let's go to TJ in Mississippi, who has thoughts on the same subject matter. What's up, TJ?
Oh, man.
How we living?
Hey, I want to talk about A.J. Brown yesterday. I know he had 3 drops, but I do think that 15-yard reception that he had to set up the lone Derrick Henry run was one of the biggest plays of the second half.
No, I'm with that. I absolutely listen, and I think because AJ, I don't know what happened, right? He spoke to the way that these road games work, just to kind of let you guys behind the curtain. Now, since we're not allowed in the locker room anymore, obviously we would have talked to AJ Brown had we been allowed in the locker room, and they did not provide him to us at the podium. But what they do when Titans media travels on the road is those of us who make the road trips, they send us out videos from the locker room that we're not allowed to put the videos out, but we're allowed to use the quotes. And so AJ, was super accountable about it. And you heard from Ryan Tannehill earlier in the show where he said, I'm not going to stop going to AJ Brown because he has a couple plays that he'd like back. And he cited, the offensive line. Myself, Derrick Henry, we all have plays out there that we would like to have back. And they just seem to snowball a bit on AJ. But yeah, the 15-yard reception in the fourth quarter to set up that 60-yard Derrick Henry touchdown run, it had great impact. I don't know that it was necessarily the turning point. I still think that was the missed extra point by the Seahawks kicker that opened the door for them to be able to tie that game, given that they had missed a field goal themselves and were unable to score touchdowns early. Started to ramp that up in the second half, certainly with Derrick, and tried to with Julio, but the Julio touchdown that wasn't a touchdown, we'll talk about later in the show. I will say to you that A.J. Brown, the idea that the quarterback did, Tom Brady has a track record of starting to ignore players on the field when they let him down. And, A.J. Brown several times yesterday let Ryan Tannehill down, and yet Ryan Tannehill continued to try and work him in, even though it did not seem to be working more often than not. The time that it did, it mattered, and it set the Titans up for a big play. We'll come back and we'll talk about the situation for the Tennessee Titans. Your phone calls as well. We're reacting to a tremendous game between the Titans and the Seahawks here in Seattle, where I'm broadcasting live, not at Lumen Field. I'm back in my hotel room. But when we come back, I want to spend some time on Derrick Henry, because Derrick Henry was probably the performer of the game, and we have yet to spend a single moment on him. 615-737-1045 is the number. I'm Buck Reising. It's 1045 The Zone.
Hear every Titans play with Mike Keefe and Coach Dave McGinnis on The Call.
Touchdown, Titans! Your home for Titans football.
1045 The Zone.
3 touchdowns solely in the second half yesterday against the Seattle Seahawks. Buck Reising here with you live from Seattle, talking about this Titans victory, taking your phone calls, and let's spend some time on Derrick Henry. 35 attempts. It's the most Derrick Henry has carried in a single regular season game in his career. 35 attempts, 182 yards, 5.2 yards per carry. He had that long run of 60 for a touchdown that we talked about him booping Quandre Diggs. And, of course, the 3 touchdowns, 1 in the third quarter, 2 in the fourth quarter, that really teed things up. I was funny because pregame, Seattle, it was interesting. We were allowed on the field. It's the first time that we've been allowed on the field in, post, or I guess it's not post-COVID, but whilst during the COVID era of professional sports being played. So it's been a minute since I've been like outside of a tunnel and felt like the fans. I mean, we are in the lower bowl at Nissan Stadium, which I hate. Not because we're with the fans, but just because it's harder to move around and get the kind of stuff that I need pregame for social media. But so we're down on the field in Seattle, and I walked up to the Titans tunnel to get them all as they were coming out in the Stormtrooper Icy Whites yesterday, because that was the Britches Report, courtesy of Jim Wyatt, and there was a Seahawks fan among all of the Titans fans at the Titans tunnel, and he had a number 1 Seahawks jersey. It looked like it was from 1980. It was very, very faded. It said on the back, instead of his name, it was it said Our House. And he was literally yelling at everybody, talking smack to everybody, every coach, every equipment manager, every player, Mike Vrabel, everybody. He was talking smack to everybody as they came in and out of the tunnel, the team photographer, all of it. And he had a sign that said, Derrick Henry, 58 yards on 17 carries, which was his stat line against the Arizona Cardinals. And he said, Derrick Henry is old and tired. He had that sign waving it in front of the tunnel before the game. And for at least the first quarter, he didn't look terribly wrong, because they came out of the gate with first down run, second down run. And it was like 2nd and 13. And 3rd and 13. I wanted to scream at somebody, because I said, if they come out run, pass again in the second series of the game, we riot. And they didn't. But it did end up working to their favor as they wore Seattle down throughout the course of the game. And Derrick Henry did not look old or tired when he was busy booping Quandre Diggs. So with that being said, let's go to Laura in Bellevue, who has some thoughts on Derrick Henry and his booping powers. What's up, Laura?
Hey, y'all. I've been cracking up listening to you this morning, Buck, and I just talking about the booping. I was like, so many things come up in my head, like, boop, there it is, or boop, boop, we got you, just like the dog thing. So, I think the favorite, though, that I came up with was, boop, there you go, boop, here I am. So it just really brightens my Monday. It just, I could boop you when you come back in town. I just
Laura, you know what? I think that's against COVID protocol, but I may let you boop me. Racker. What a time. I've had so much fun with this show today, and I'm so glad that we're making people laugh. I'm sure the vast majority of people probably think we're idiots.
But in reality, seriously though, boop aside, like that has to be, is that not one of the best performances of Derrick Henry's Titans career, given he had a career high in receptions with 55 yards, threw in the 182 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, 182 yards. It stacks up with his best performances as a Titan in game 2.
I would say it's his most complete. I would have to say, given the stakes, I think the 2019 postseason run just collectively, those 2 games, right? New England and then Baltimore, because things kind of got away from them in Kansas City. I would say those 2 are probably the greater because of the implications and the stakes. But as far as the most complete performance of Derrick Henry's career, Lucas, can you name me a player on the Titans who had more receptions than Derrick Henry yesterday? Are you capable of doing that?
I am not capable of doing that because it doesn't exist. He was tied with Julio Jones.
That is correct. Julio Jones and Derrick Henry had the same amount of catches yesterday. Now, Julio had 128 yards and what should have been a touchdown. Derrick had 55, but still, I mean, it doesn't look natural. But the screen game, You want to talk about Todd Downing, and the pressure is decidedly off Todd Downing today, it would seem, after people were calling for his head, flash mobs and pitchforks and torches last week. But the Titans haven't run a successful Derrick Henry screen, I swear to God, since 2019. And it happened a couple of times yesterday. Now, I think that's because they have the practice time in the offseason to commit to being a screen team, whereas they have gotten away from that, or had gotten away from that in 2020 because of the way that the offseason had kind of worked. But I would say to you, Lucas, are you hearing my email ding as often as I am, or is that just me?
Yeah, it's in the distance.
That's like 4 or 5 of them. Somebody keeps DMing me on Twitter. I'm gonna fight them. And now I get emails every time I get a DM on social media. So knock it off, whoever that is. But as far as Derrick Henry is concerned, that's one of his more complete performances in his career. What we're watching from Derrick Henry is a Hall of Fame resume being built. And I kind of had that realization last year. And it's one of probably the greatest sports tragedies among the COVID situation.
There it is.
People continue to DM me.
But this season is a turning point in that, right? As far as a Hall of Fame career being built, because everybody talks about bouncing back from a 2,000-yard season. Nobody's ever reached 1,500 after reaching that mark of 2,000. This is a huge turning point in that sense.
Yes, I mean, listen, he is going to continue. He's going to continue to push that envelope as one of 8 players to rush for 2,000 yards, and then try and work his way into that 1,500-yard range to be the first player to ever do it in the history of the NFL. It's easier. It's not easy, but it's easier because of the expanded regular season. But this was Derrick Henry talking about the hostility of the environment and the way that his team responded. Because Derrick Henry, we all saw that if you watch the TV copy, and I went back and watched the TV copy after the Cardinals loss a couple of times, you saw Derrick Henry trying to get some juice out of his teammates. Derrick Henry said that his team responded in tremendous fashion, himself included, and himself probably more than anybody, to a hostile as hell environment against the Seattle Seahawks.
Coming in a hostile environment, last week we didn't play to our standards, which, that was on us. We took full responsibility for that game and, in front of our fans. And, coming way West Coast, like I said, a hostile environment. The fans are relentless, and for this organization, and for this city. And, I don't think nobody expect us to come out here and get a W. But I know we just stuck together, trusting, what we preach and what Coach preaches, and how we practice and how we play, that eventually come together for us, and glad to come out here and get a win.
It's Derrick Henry talking about his team's response and, of course, deflecting praise and attention away from himself. But it's 35 carries, 182 yards, 3 touchdowns, all on the ground, and then 6 catches for 55 throughout the course of that game. It's the most complete performance of Derrick Henry's career. Let's go to Paxton, who's been waiting patiently. Wants to chime in today. What's going on, Paxton?
Hey, what's going on, Buck, man? Always good to talk to you, brother. So the first thing I want to say real quick, and I noticed this, is it seemed like when Derrick had his 60-yard run, it seemed like Diggs did not want to tackle him. It seemed like he did not want to end up on an NFL meme. And that could be just me watching that. But he took an angle to where he could have probably attempted to lunge out there a little bit. So maybe when he bounced off the ground there a little bit at the end of that run, it probably seemed like he was thinking, okay, I'm going to make an attempt to look like I'm going to try to tackle this guy. But Derrick was like, nah. So those little, I guess, drills they do at practice, Buck, that you actually had pictures of, are pretty useful, man. I mean, it looks like when the running backs are sitting on the ground and their heads are right there, and Derrick's sitting there pushing their heads down as a drill, man, it looks like it's something that's definitely useful, man. So it kind of made me think of that. But the turning point for me, and I would be curious as heck to get inside of the locker room at halftime to hear whatever the hell Vrabel is telling these guys. But the Titans are a second-half team. So the turning point is when they went in that locker room and Vrabel said whatever he said to them to get their heads out of their you-know-what, man. So I don't know what it was, but Vrabel, keep it up. Finally, I want us to be underdogs. I hope everyone picks us to lose this game against the Colts, and I hope we pick to lose every game moving forward for the rest of the season, man. That's all I got.
Thank you for the call, Paxton. Yeah, Will, it's a good point you bring up about Vrabel. in the second half and Derrick Henry's stiff arm drills, because I do think I think your observation is spot on about Quandre Diggs not being one to be made the next Josh Norman. And I'll talk about that coming up next. You'll hear from Kevin Byard on the team's response as well. On the other side, Buck Reising, final hour on the way, live from Seattle here on 104.5 The Zone.
Coming up today on Blaine and Mickey.
We got full reaction to the Titans Week 2 matchup in Seattle. That's coming your way.
And we'll do our Ding Dong of the Week segment, presented by Mark Spain Real Estate. Let's hope the Titans don't give us material for Ding Dong.
Today, starting at 1 p.m. on 104.5 The Zone.
This is Damon Amendolara with a CBS Sports Minute. Time to start wondering if Tua Tagovailoa will ever be healthy enough to be a starting QB anywhere in the NFL. Assorted injuries at Alabama. There was the devastating hip injury that ended his college career. Now, by week 2 of his sophomore season in the NFL, he's out again. After getting knocked out of yesterday's game with bruised ribs, the Dolphins will give him an MRI to see if there's any cartilage damage. At some point, Tua has to be in there every week for a few years. He needs to be available. He needs to be developed and learn from facing the fire week in, week out. With an injury list that's longer than the line outside the Clevelander on a Saturday night, Miami may need to start thinking about the next QB already. This is Damon Amendolara.
My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea. What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
my return later this afternoon. In the meantime, we're broadcasting live from Seattle, about 6 blocks away from the site where the Tennessee Titans broke the Seattle Seahawks over Fat Randy's knee. We spent a lot of time talking about it over the course of today's show. We welcome your participation, as always. The number is simple, 615-737-1045. Your thoughts, your questions, your comments, your concerns, your Fat Randy nicknames, we're taking them all throughout the course of today's program and into the final hour before Blaine and Mickey take over at 1 o'clock Central Time. So we ended last hour talking about Derrick Henry and how it feels more and more since last season that things are trending in the direction of a Hall of Fame resume. It's trending in the direction of Derrick Henry being, one of the most prolific backs, not just in football right now, but in the annals of the sport, right? This is something that I had this realization. I'm trying to think of, I think it was the Baltimore game, right? Where they won at Baltimore in overtime with a walk-off, if I remember correctly, it was a 26-yard run by Derrick at the end of that game. And I just had one of those moments where I looked at him and I said, this is like, I feel like I've taken this so much for granted because in my career, DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry are the only two Titans running backs that I have witnessed, right? I did not watch Eddie George while he was doing Eddie George things. That was long before my time of cognizance and paying attention to football. The Eddie George I know now makes cameos on Ballers and does Broadway plays and shills tequila, and now is the head coach of Tennessee State.
Got his first win. I was
about to say, did they win?
Yeah, in Nissan Stadium.
Well, congratulations to the Tennessee State Tigers on their home opening victory and Eddie George's first home game at Nissan Stadium as a head coach. Very, very cool. But for my part, the more that I watch Derrick, the more that I think of him as like LeBron James, where I have to like remove myself from the fact that I'm so used to watching LeBron James and Derrick Henry be great on an entirely different level among their peers that I'm not processing just how special it is in real time, right? He's the LeBron James of running backs in that regard, where you want to appreciate him while he's doing these things in front of you rather than being like, yeah, I'm used to seeing Derrick Henry rip off 60-yard touchdown runs because he's been doing that every year that I've been working as an NFL reporter. So from that standpoint, you have to take a step back. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, it's been a different story. On the defensive side of the ball, we've seen them, have a roller coaster of a couple of years, right? Where, the 2019 season opens and Marcus Mariota can't do anything with the offense, and the defense is only allowing 20 points per game because they have to at a necessity. And those long runs would go against them at the end of games because they're physically exhausted. And then Dean Pease retires, unretires, and goes to Atlanta this year. And by the way, the Atlanta defense looks horrific. Tom Brady put 5 passing touchdowns on them yesterday. So God help Dean Pease down there and Arthur Smith, because it looks pretty ghastly so far.
They made it a game for a moment. They cut it to a 3-point game after being down 28-10, and then Brady did Brady things. And the same one guy had 2 pick sixes on Matt Ryan.
He's leading the league in touchdown passes right now, Brady, at 44 years old.
Well, he had 4 on that Thursday night. 5.
Oh, no.
4 against the Cowboys.
4 against the Cowboys, 5 against
9 touchdown passes, and 4 of them to Rob Gronkowski.
Which is crazy. They literally just dusted these 2 off and trotted them out, and now they're here to cave everybody's skulls in again. But to speak to the Titans defense, to get back on track to that, they struggled. They struggled not throughout the course of this game as they did against Arizona, but they did give up 3 massive chunk plays that had the ability to decide that game. And so when we spoke to Kevin Byard about this yesterday in the post-game press conference, not just Derrick Henry being a part of halftime, but Kevin Byard spoke on this as well. And what a galvanizing moment the halftime locker room was when the Titans were trailing 24-9.
No, it was pretty eminent. It was pretty, I think, I couldn't get the word out. But, guys were turned up. I just think it was simple fact is we just really wasn't proud of how we played in that first half. I mean, obviously we feel like we played pretty good. I mean, just a little, but those big plays. And then we gave up 3 plays. If you look at those 3 plays that we don't give up, it's a totally different ball game. So that's the type of thing. Like, we was obviously animated, but at the same time, it was like, okay, let's just calm down. Let's go out here and play the football the way we know how to play it. And I think we was able to calm down, kind of settle down, and allow the game to come to us.
You know what allowed that? That was Kevin Byard at the post-game press conference last night. You know what allowed them to settle down? The presence of one person. And it wasn't just the presence of one person, but it allowed the defense to play up to the level that this one particular individual found. It's not on the offensive side of the ball, it's on the defense. I'm going to tell you who that individual is coming up next, because he's the new Titans CB, not wide receiver 1, not QB 1, but CB 1, cornerback 1 for the Tennessee Titans. Through 2 games, he has emerged. And I don't think people expected it to go this way. You'll hear from him coming up next. I'm Buck Reising, live from Seattle. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Ryan Tannehill, Julio Jones, and Derrick Henry. They live here. I mean, like, not really like here in the building, but you know what we mean. On the Titans station.
104.5 The Zone.
APB stand for, Lucas? Because I saw you put that in the comments on YouTube.
I was just thinking about that. I don't know.
You don't know what it means?
No, it's just a thing people say.
Are you sure?
Let me research that.
Yeah, why don't you do that? Because we have put out a notice. Darrington, our heel of the Buck Reising Show, the man who compares Ryan Tannehill to Matt Schaub and is a noted Seahawks fan, has yet to make an appearance today. Now, have you discovered the meaning of APB?
Yes, it stands for All Points Bulletin. So it's a general bulletin broadcast to alert law enforcement officers over a wide area that someone like a suspect or something like a stolen vehicle is being actively sought in connection with a crime. All Points Bulletin for Darrington today.
Yeah, in connection with the crime of comparing Ryan Tannehill to Matt Schaub.
Yeah.
Now I think this is him. I believe he has been located. Because I have a tweet from somebody that's just at D Lee on social media. And all it says to me is in all caps, 1 p.m. today at Buck Reising, which ignores, of course, the fact that the show concludes at about 12:55 and that Blaine and Mickey, who will not go after Darrington the way that all of our callers and Lucas and myself will go after Darrington. It ignores the fact that none of the smoke that awaits him between the hours of 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. will be there.
It's not even about going after him. It's just about accountability, right? He came on here. He was talking his stuff. He's a big Seahawks guy, Matt Schaubing, Ryan Tannehill. It's just about accountability. That's all.
Yes. So there appears to be great cowardice on the part of Darrington. An All Points Bulletin, as it's known, has been put out. And so we will see if this coward who compares Ryan Tannehill to Matt Schaub and is a noted Seahawks fan decides to make an appearance today. Of course, we say with all love and respect because we need Darrington. We want Darrington on that wall. We need him on that wall as the heel of our radio show. 615-737-1045 is how you can get involved. We're going to talk about the officiating and Julio Jones's touchdown that was not a touchdown, according to the officials, and the, just across the board poor officiating that took place. But I want to start with what we talked about before we ended the last segment. I told you that the Titans have discovered their cornerback one. The cornerback one for the Tennessee Titans after 2 games and should be moving forward is none other than Christian Fulton. Christian Fulton, who Mike Vrabel has told us many times over that he's just frankly excited to watch Christian Fulton play. Christian Fulton, and I'll say this about the 2020 draft class because they've been under a lot of heat, understandably so. They've been under a ton of heat as a unit because Isaiah Wilson, of course, going the way that things went. Darrington Evans, speaking of Darringtons that are missing and need an all points bulletin put out for them, Darrington Evans, the 3rd-round running back, is perpetually on IR, it seems, and has been recently placed or was at the start of the regular season, placed on IR. Now, you've gotten contributions from Chris Jackson, Laurel Murchison, but Christian Fulton has been the biggest and the brightest of those contributors. Elijah Molden really is the only contributor for the 2021 class, for those of you who are ignoring the fact that, or are forgetting the fact that Caleb Farley was ruled out and didn't even travel to this game in Seattle. But Christian Fulton's primary assignment yesterday was DK Metcalf, who is regarded, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, regarded as 2 of the best, if not the best wide receiver tandem in football. And it would be hard for me to dispute that, even as A.J. Brown and Julio Jones are not to be trifled with. And A.J. Brown did not have a good performance yesterday, but it doesn't mean that he's not still a fantastic young player in this league. Christian Fulton's numbers versus DK Metcalf yesterday. He was targeted 5 times. He allowed 1 completion for 8 yards and no touchdowns. Russell Wilson was not throwing at Christian Fulton yesterday. He was not targeting DK Metcalf because every time he tried, it was an incompletion outside of the 1 completion for 8 yards. This was Christian Fulton speaking on his confidence and his comfort level through these 2 games now that he's had this full offseason to kind of get his feet under him.
Yeah, I say both, being confident and just being comfortable. I feel like the game slowed down for me a lot this year.
So, and just the vets, helping me, the coaches helping me, in the film room, just trying to, make plays, and just trying to make sure I build up on my games, throughout the week in practice. Just want to make sure, the guys give me a good look so I'll be ready on Sundays.
So, and I'd like to play the follow-up because that was my voice that you hear muffled in the background, because I asked him about the confidence that his coaching staff has him, because Mike Vrabel has gone on and on whenever we talk about Christian Fulton about how excited he is to watch Christian Fulton play football. And this is what Christian Fulton had to say about having the trust of his coaching staff.
It's definitely big, it's great when, your coaches believe in you. They give you an extra boost of confidence. So it's great to, to know that the coaches believe in me, and, I just don't want to let them down, whatever the task may be for me that week.
Yeah, I mean, and he hasn't, right? He has been a shining beacon in the Titans secondary that desperately needs said beacon. He needs he needs to be their best corner, and has been through these two games. Now, there will be moments where he has a bit of a letdown. It's the NFL. Everybody gets got every once in a while. And certainly that was the case for Elijah Molden, because Elijah Molden got a couple of times yesterday. Tyler Lockett and Bradley McDougald. Oh my God, Lucas. We talked about that conversation all week long because we had him on the radio show, former Seahawk. I'm like, maybe he'll give them some kind of competitive advantage playing his former teammate and having played against Russell Wilson with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bradley McDougald looked like hell yesterday. That was a tough scene. That was a real tough scene. So there was no Bradley McDougald revenge game to be found on the field, as Tyler Lockett was running free in their secondary for 63 yards, and Fred Swain was going for 68 yards on 3rd and 12. And the safety, Amani Hooker, is a difficult loss and will be out for several more weeks, given that they had to place him on the short-term IR. So cornerback one is now Christian Fulton, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as they're concerned as well, because given the matchup that he was assigned after things did not go well for Jackrabbit Jenkins against DeAndre Hopkins. Jackrabbit had a couple of good plays yesterday, but I think Fulton is showing you that he is a long-term solution in that secondary. And he spoke yesterday about just basically trying to put his best foot forward. And this is what the second-year corner had to say.
I think I played, pretty solid. It was fun going against, some of the top guys in the league, and just getting that opportunity, each week, the coaches believe in me, to face those guys, and I just want, put my best foot forward and, just try to make as many plays to help the team win.
And he did that. He helped. While Tyler Lockett got his numbers, DK Metcalf did not. And that speaks to a great effort by Christian Fulton, as the rest of the secondary and the rest of the defense tried to rally around him.
So given the comfortability that people have now with Fulton on that side, do you think they need to see more from Jackrabbit? Like, how would you gauge his performance through 2 games?
Meh.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's all right. Like, I think he's, Caleb Farley obviously can't go, either due to readiness or due to health. In this particular case, he was flat out ruled out with a shoulder injury. And I'm trying to figure out, I still haven't been able to figure out the play where that happened against Arizona, because all he was playing was field goal block against Arizona, and then he got mop-up duty when they put all the backups in as the game turned into a blowout. But what's the other option? You can't put Molden on the outside. Molden got the business yesterday, and Molden is most comfortable in the slot, even if yesterday did not look very comfortable for the rookie 3rd-round pick out of Washington. Chris Jackson, had a bad penalty. It looked on that Fred Swain blown coverage that Chris Jackson might have let him loose because there was just nobody around him. So McDougald was closest to him, but I just kind of watching that play back a couple of times, it looked like Chris Jackson had some kind of involvement. Point being that Jackrabbit and Fulton are still your best options on the outside. And my expectation for Jackrabbit Jenkins coming into this year is he's just Malcolm Butler. That's just how you have to look at him. And Malcolm had some great plays, some great efforts, some great energy, but was at the back end of his career. And Jackrabbit is that. Likes to gamble a little more than Malcolm Butler did. So far, it has not worked in the Titans' favor entirely. But I think he's held up fine. I think fine, because DeAndre Hopkins is going to do that to a lot of people. They're a lot better than Jackrabbit. So I'm not necessarily burying him because of the way that it looked in week one. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved in the conversation. Tony is on the line and wants to talk about yesterday's game. What's up, Tony?
Hey, good afternoon, Buck. How are you doing, brother?
I'm great, buddy.
Hey, man. So I just wanted to kind of break down kind of what I thought about yesterday's performance and kind of get your take on it. So initially, I had picked the Seahawks to win that game by about 17 points. I didn't think the Titans had a chance, but the first half of that game kind of seemed to go the way that I thought it would. I think Derrick had 6 carries for 9 yards early. The line wasn't blocking very well. Obviously I was really nervous with Taylor being out, but I wasn't as nervous with Taylor being out because I saw his performance last week. Bright spots in the offense for me yesterday, Buck, was definitely Ryan Tannehill. I thought he played really, really well. There's a couple of balls that he left out in front or behind the receivers, but overall I think his quarterback play was really, really good. I can't necessarily call the fumble on him, although, he did get hit from the backside to his kind of blind to that. But, I'm calling these fumbles in the first couple of weeks from Ryan on that offensive line. So my down points to this, Buck, is I think the offensive line play needs to be a lot better. I think that, we need to block better. I think our front four on defense showed signs of being much better than they were last year. Kind of opposite, the secondary looked a little bit rough yesterday. I would say this overall, Buck, in my opinion, as bad as the Titans played yesterday, they beat a Super Bowl contender on the road and what could be one of, if not Kansas City, the most hostile environment to play in the NFL. And I also think that we might have found a kicker for another week or two. So to see another kicker come out as number 10 since 2019, Buck, and miss a field goal but still come back to hit the overtime game winner, that was fantastic. And I got one more thing for you, Buck. When Julio Jones toe taps in the end zone for a touchdown, what is the difference between that and what happened yesterday? Hey, man, I love your show. Love you, Lucas. See y'all soon.
Hey, thanks for the call, Tony. There's a lot there to break down. 615-737-1045 is the number. So Derrick Henry stats at the half. He was after. Lucas, can you guess how much I like that we're playing stat trivia throughout the course of today. Can you tell me what Derrick Henry was averaging at halftime against the Seahawks as they trailed 24-9?
Less than 3 yards per carry.
2.7 yards
That's
per
right.
carry. He finished with 5.2. It was 13 attempts, 35 yards. The Titans were 0 of 7. 0 of 7 on third down, which was a nightmare with the way that it started, and the turnovers had started by then as well with the sacks that Bobby Wagner had. That was the one where he just came free and popped Ryan Tannehill square in the jaw. There was not a forced fumble yet. That came in the second half in not an ideal situation that set up that Chris Carson 1-yard touchdown run. But let's kind of, because there's a lot there, Tony, and I'm not going to be able to get to all of it, but I want to talk about Julio Jones and the officiating because that was a big point of contention yesterday. So Julio Jones gets a touchdown taken away from him. It was very DeAndre Hopkins week 1-esque, where it's a back of the end zone throw. You see Julio has the recognition. It's crazy how these guys operate and how they're able to process in real time. But Julio says, you know what? Hell with it. Why don't I just let Julio Jones tell you about the cat? Actually, let's start here, Lucas. Let's start with Mike Vrabel talking about the official's call on the field, and then we'll hear from Julio Jones momentarily about the touchdown that wasn't yesterday against the Seahawks.
Well, we got some new guys. I think so. First of all, I think it was when you go toe heel, that's out of bounds. So apparently they thought that the heel came down on the line. When you drag your toe, and that's it. That's the end of it. But when you go toe heel, they count the heel. So guess that they thought that there was something in between, or you might want to call the league. They got a new guy. They got new people up there working. Al's not being up there anymore. So some of those, they stayed with the ruling on the field last year. Now there's a new group of guys, and that's what they saw. I'm not going to, sit there and say anything other than I'm sure it was really close.
That was Mike Vrabel being exceedingly diplomatic yesterday. Now I was I was keeping tabs of our friend Mina Kimes. I did a couple wellness checks on her throughout the course of the day on social media. All she did was respond to me with a hiss after they doinked the extra point, because she knew what was coming just as well as everybody else who's watched the Seahawks in the Pete Carroll era saw coming. So what Mike Vrabel is saying there is they considered Julio Jones's heel to be out of bounds because his toe touched first, then the heel comes down after he gets the second foot down. And the heel, in the opinion of the officials, comes down on the white line, making it out of bounds, except when you look at all of the pictures that were taken. Donald Page, the Tennessee Titans team photographer, Donald does great work, and he got just a tremendous shot of that touchdown that wasn't. And it looks, I mean, if there is a portion of Julio Jones' blue cleats touching that white line, I could not discern it because it looked clear to me that he was in bounds based on toe heel rule, right? Heel was in bounds based on the photographic evidence, but according to the referees, according to the officials, that was not the case. Now, we asked Julio Jones about this as well, and Julio followed the lead of his head coach in being exceedingly diplomatic.
No, I don't. I mean, I control what I can control, right? So, whatever they ruled it, they said it was wasn't a touchdown. So my mindset and mentality is just get the next play. We just got to go out there and play ball. Oh yeah, the guys I just saw it, but I felt like I was in once I caught the ball because I looked down, caught the ball, secured the catch, 1 foot down, second foot down, and I felt like I scored, But I mean, that's not my place. To do their job. That's their job. They're professionals at what they do. And they try to make every call the best judgment they can do. Like I said, it's not my job to go out there and officiate the game.
I mean, he handled that as well as one could for being robbed. I think that the red zone gods apparently hate Julio Jones. He's had trouble I don't think due to any fault of his own, but whether it's due to officiating blunders or being a decoy for Calvin Ridley for last couple of years in Atlanta, Julio Jones hasn't been able to get touchdowns. He stuffs the box score outside of being able to score. And so I thought the officiating errors were on both sides yesterday. I thought, it started with the Julio Jones. I believe the Julio Jones non-touchdown was first. And if I recall the sequence of events correctly, it was the Chris Carson spot that they gave him a first down when he was very, very clearly short of the first down. That Mike Vrabel, just based on our vantage point in the press box, he had his hand on the challenge flag. But anytime it comes down to the challenging of a spot, Vrabel always cites the statistics on how infrequently, almost never, do they overturn the spot of the ball. So I guess he did that against his. He did that in real time, according to his better judgment, and it ended up being okay. But for the officials, also that taunting flag on I think the corner's name is DJ Reed for Seattle in his coverage when he was clearly beat by AJ Brown and just kind of he'd gotten beat. I don't know what he was flexing about in the first place because there was nothing for him to be flexing about. Ryan Tannehill just simply overthrew AJ Brown, but the taunting flag on DJ Reed was trash. And I understand that Titans fans don't care about that because it went against the Seahawks. But as somebody who's objectively viewing the game and as a fan of NFL football, as a reporter, I thought that was such a crap call.
But that's going to happen this season. There's going to be more of that with the new rule.
Well, and then of course there's the play that should have ended the game. And in fact, I think we have Mike Keith's call of that yesterday afternoon on Titans radio with the Ola Adenyi sack that should have been a safety and should have ended the game in favor of the Titans in overtime.
Wilson under pressure, flushed out, being chased in the end zone. Adenyi grabs him in the end zone. Safety. If it's a safety, it's over. They'll call his forward progress down at the 1.
Now, that also a trash call. I mean, that was a safety. Clear and obvious. It was clear and obvious to Coach Mack, clear and obvious to Mike Keith, clear and obvious to every one of us sitting in the press box watching that game from 1,000 feet above in Lumen Field. I mean, it was such a trash call. And a lot of them went in favor of the Seahawks yesterday, but there were some that also went in favor of the Titans that, frankly, it was just a poorly officiated football game. 615-737-1045 is the number. Let's go to Joseph in Nashville, who wants to talk about the safety no call. What's up, Joseph?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that it was a safety and intentional grounding at the same time because there was no receiver in vicinity when he let to the ball when he fell inside the end zone. I mean, I thought it was like a double safety, if you could call it that.
Oh, I mean, no, but you're correct. It should have been a safety and it should have been an intentional grounding, and the officials called it neither in overtime at a point that was critical to ending the game. I think you're spot on about that. Let's go to Jaden in Laverne, who wants to talk about our boy because he's still missing. Darrington is, the show is, there are less than 20 minutes to go in this radio program, and we have still not heard from noted heel and Seahawks fan Darrington of the Buck Reising Show. What's up, Jaden?
Yeah, I'd like to say that the guy that you thought you found on Twitter earlier was actually my dad, Donald Lee. So Darrington's still in the loose. Don't let him off the hook. He needs to call in.
Still out there.
Wait. Stay there, Jaden. I accidentally thought your dad was Darrington because I think I just put your dad on blast. I hope his mentions are not poison.
He texted me and he was like, "What did Buck just say about me?" Because he wasn't listening.
Oh God. Please send your apologies to your father from me. 615-737-1045. See, you can't be reckless on the social media, man, because you guys are vicious out there. And I'm sure you swarmed Jaden's poor father because I mistakenly thought his Twitter account was Darren.
He's still on the loose.
Still on the loose, still hiding in the shadows of Lumen Field where the Seahawks fell yesterday. All right, when we come back. Well, actually, should we squeeze Joseph in Nashville in really quick? Let's do that before we head to the polls. Excuse me, Matt is in Nashville and wants to talk about the officiating. What's up, Matt?
Yeah, so I was going to ask about the safety, but there was another play. I think it was in the fourth quarter. The Seahawks had the ball. It was like third down. I think it was Chris Carson.
Yeah.
He was running towards the side of where the camera
that was
and he reached out
I don't want to interrupt you, Matt, but that was the spot that we were talking about, the missed spot where they gave him the first down and Mike Vrabel didn't challenge. So that's the play that we addressed earlier in the show. It's just a miss. Mike Vrabel could have challenged it.
I think it was the worst call of the night on the field.
I don't know. The safety was tough because it wasn't
just as far as
safety.
how obvious it was of how far he was from the marker. I thought that was the most egregious of the three.
I can see why you would feel that way, but given again the implications, they kind of outweigh because who was it earlier? Was it Joseph that said the double safety? Because not only was it a safety,
right.
It would have been an intentional grounding and would have backed it up further and made it another safety. So they missed the opportunity to call the safety twice. Because the game was done so poorly yesterday. So credit to Mike Vrabel and Julio Jones for handling that hell of a lot better than I would have. But they have massive fines on the horizon if they go with the refs. All right, we'll wrap the show up. Coming up next, polls on the other side. Buck Reising live from Seattle on 104.5 The Zone.
Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers host the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football. Tonight, starting at 7 on your home for Monday Night Football. 104.5 The Zone.
Gonna fly back home to Nashville. I hope the weather improves because it's so pretty here in Seattle. I've had so much fun. This has probably been my favorite road trip that I've made in the last 5 years, and I've seen a bunch of cool places while covering the Tennessee Titans, and it's been a lot of fun to do this show today. You guys have been exceptional, and thank you so much for interacting with us the way that you do. Before we wrap up, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do, Lucas, because my flight isn't until 5:30 Pacific time, which means 7:30 Central time tonight. So, and my hotel checkout was 45 minutes ago. So I don't know what I'm going to do with myself.
Be a black duffel bag over your head, and you're just going to be dragged away here mid-segment. I'll finish it out.
Probably. Listen, I think, yeah, okay. It's like that that screenshot from Friday's show where you're just staring up longingly at my chair.
Yeah, I've made a call. They know you're late.
All right, you jerk. Let's do the polls.
Stop the count. Stop the count. The polls have closed and the votes have been tallied. It's the segment where bias takes over and nuance goes to die. Now, here's your favorite Buck Reising Show daily correspondent, Lucas Polzica.
Titans legend Fat Randy, yes or no? 74% say yes.
Yeah, Fat Randy forever. Fat Randy until the end of time. Fat Randy from 36 yards for the win in OT to give the Titans their first victory on the season. I want to be respectful. I do not want to body shame, but I think Fat Randy's a great nickname. So we're going to ride with Fat Randy until further notice.
He has had a great career in the NFL, really.
A great career?
I mean, a very good career, like longevity. I think that's fair to say.
Longevity is good. That is, he has played in more NFL games than you or I. That is correct.
What was the turning point for the Titans on Sunday? Scott says, our kicker making field goals instead of coming up empty, and Derrick Henry. Jay Miller says the taunting penalty changed the momentum of the game.
You know, that did have a bit of a vibe because that was a high leverage situation. To be honest with you, to put the Titans in, to give the Titans better field position and to keep the offense moving when it could have very easily stalled out. But for me, I think it was the Seattle, after the 68-yard touchdown, the missed extra point, because that opened the door for the possibility of overtime.
Crazy Pellet says Michael Pruitt lighting the fire under the Titans offense. He really did bring a spark.
No, it's not just stirring Jamal Adams up into getting penalties on the Seahawks, but he made plays down the field in the passing game. Listen, I think Ferkser, this whole conversation about the Titans tight end, I won't go long on it, but I don't think it's a tight end one situation. I think it's whomever favors them the most throughout the course of the week and based on the opponent. So I think that it can be it. I mean, Jeff Swaim can't be dropping passes in the end zones like he did against Arizona, but there will be times when you see all, I guess, four of these guys, including Tommy Hudson, who was called up yesterday from the practice squad. I think you'll see these guys have a not an even workload, but a more even workload than you might have expected.
Yeah, Hudson had a big first down catch on Sunday. Sunday was probably a good example of what it'll look like when those guys are able to open up more with AJ and Julio on the field together.
Yes, one would hope.
DK Titan says the 60-yard run was the turning point.
Yeah, people are being, people have favorites and they're going with recency bias. But I would say that the touchdown, it matters, but it doesn't matter the way that you needed it to matter without the missed extra point.
What Titans injury are you most concerned with? Lawan, Amani Hooker, or Jayon Brown? Almost 1,000 votes here. 39% say it's Lawan. 38% say Hooker. 23% say Brown.
Yeah, I stole this question from Austin Stanley and Zach Bingham on the A to Z Sports Morning Show. By the way, A to Z Sports Primetime, I'm going to do it from Seattle at 4:30 Central Time, given that I'll be in the air at its normal, regularly scheduled time at 8 p.m. Central. So you can hang out with me on the A to Z Sports Network. I'll probably do it from a park bench somewhere in Seattle at one of these. What was the movement a couple of years ago? I think I was in college where it was like not defund Wall Street, but something Wall Street. You know what I'm talking about? Where people would like protest in the squares, and there was like tent camps and stuff like that.
Not really.
I can't remember what it was. Keep it moving.
Well, you know what we should have done with this poll is put Roger Saffold in there, because Sombrero and Quesenberry, they covered well for Lawan at the tackle spots, but Aaron Brewer got beat up a couple of times, and they clearly still do not trust Dylan Radins in there at guard.
Yeah, that first play where Saffold came out, because Saffold came back in and then had to leave again with a shoulder injury. was the designation. But that first play that Aaron Brewer came in was the strip sack of Tannehill. So yeah, it's not run left is not going the way that everybody thought it was going to go this year.
Did Hendon Hooker do enough against Tech to start for the Vols against Florida on Saturday? 72% say yes, but we'll get into that more tomorrow. Mike Wilson joined us at 12:20. What was the most egregious officiating error in Titans versus Seahawks on Sunday? All right, 51%, well over 1,000 votes. People were obviously fired up about these. 51% say it was the Julio non-touchdown. 31% say it was the non-safety on Wilson. 13% say the Chris Carson spot. 5% the DJ Reed taunting.
Yeah, Lucas said the most egregious of them was the Chris Carson spot.
I just thought it was the most obvious.
Yes, you are correct in saying it's the most obvious, but the missed double safety opportunity was the most impactful.
Last one. Did Derrick Henry boop Quandre Diggs yesterday? 95% say yes.
Yes. Yes is the answer. Derrick Henry booped another grown man who got booped because he was trying to avoid being the next Josh Norman. What do you got, Lucas?
Career high today. Spencer has given us an 8.5.
Ooh, that's the grade for the show. And that's the show live from Seattle. When next we speak, it'll be at 4:30 Central Time on NZ Sports Prime Time. And then I'm back home in Nashville to do this all over again tomorrow. Spend a little more time on the Tennessee Volunteers. Loaded show. Looking forward to it then. Blaine and Mickey, though, they're next.
Blaine and Mickey, never let up.
You better go out there guns a-blazing. If you're a starter in this league, and it doesn't matter who you go against, you better let them know that you're the real deal.
You can't even crack that window, can you? You got to keep that window nailed shut all the time.
Especially if you're an aging veteran. In NFL, you get 30, all of a sudden now you're a different player. Like, well, can he still do it? They'll start questioning and doubting until you close the door and say, no, this guy still got the goods.
Blaine and Mickey, today from 1 to 3 on 104.5 The Zone.